or blinds us from seeing these truths. But thank you for allowing us to do that week after week. I pray that this week also you will do your work in us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay. About a couple of months ago, we looked at loving God. I don't know if you remember that, what it means to love God. So we looked at it, and we said to love God is to not to love us, and not to love money, not to love flesh, not to love brother, sister, and the others. I actually wanted to do the second part of it. Love your God with all your heart and love your neighbor. I actually wanted to do the love the neighbor. Then somehow in my spirit I led on speaking about troubles and why troubles come in our life. I don't know why it got diverted, but maybe God had a purpose for it. Maybe some of us needed to hear that. So, but then I got completely diverted, and then recently I was reminded of it to go back to that passage. So I went back to that passage. So that's what we're going to look at it. So if you go to Matthew 22, 34. Hearing that Jesus has silenced the Sadducees, Matthew 22, 34. The Pharisees got together. One of them, the expert in law, tested him with this question: Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And then second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Right? So these two are like nail on the wall, let's say. So if that picture is hanging on the wall, these pictures are hanging on the wall. If you pull the nail off, everything falls apart, right? So if you pull these two out, the entire law and prophets and the entire Bible falls apart, and the entire Christianity falls apart, right? So these are the two. On everything hangs, Jesus says. It's a pretty strong statement, all right? So it's pretty dare statement to make. He says these are the two that everything hangs on, right? Prophets, whatever prophetically they spoke, whatever the law given by Moses, whole entirety of the Old Testament hangs on these two. And then in Luke 10, 25, on one occasion, an expert in law. Okay, so Luke 10, 25. On one occasion, an expert in law stood up to test Jesus' teacher. He asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? He said, what is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? He answered, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And he said, you have answered it correctly. Jesus replied, do this and you will live. Okay, so, and if you I can quote multiple passages like that, like how these two are central to many, pretty much everything that Christ and the Bible has to say. So first of all, we saw how to love God. So the gist of it is, if you don't remember, the gist of it is, if you want to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, the only way to do it is to detach ourselves from other loves, right? Love of the world, love of money, love of ourselves, love of flesh, love of anything. If you don't move away from it, you can never love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. so that's what love is all about. If you forgot it, just go back to, there's a video there, you can listen to it. That's the love of God. But how about the second part of it, right? Loving our neighbor. That's another part of it, right? So that's what we're going to look at it. So there are three stages, if you like, in loving our neighbor. Three stages. Let us call it primary school, right? Or let's start with nursery. Okay, let's start with nursery, and then primary, and then secondary. Okay, so the first stage is nursery. So that's Ethan's and John's stage, okay, of loving our neighbor. Should we start there, right? So that Bible clearly lays out these three different stages of loving our neighbor. Okay, so we start with nursery love, and it's laid out in Romans 13. If you go to Romans 13, Paul writes about this. He says, Romans 13:8, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt of loving one another. For whoever loves others have fulfilled the law, the commands. You shall not, so these are the commands, yeah? So the commandments, sorry. The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other command there may be, are summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Remember, he's not saying love your God here, right? It's summed up in loving your neighbor as yourself. In other words, he summarizes in 10, love does not do harm to your neighbor. Therefore, love is fulfillment law. If you go back and say, love, thou shalt not murder, not steal, these are harming others. Okay, so the nursery step of loving your neighbor, is to not to harm anyone. That is the starting step of love. If you want to obey these two, loving God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and loving our neighbor, right? The first step, if you're determined to as Jesus said, do this, so you will live, right? Your life, you will have life to live, or if you will obey the commandments, and you want to please God and you want to live, the first step is not to harm anyone. Not to harm. We may not commit adultery, right? We may not commit adultery. We may not kill anyone. But is there any other way we harm our neighbors? If you go to Proverbs 3. 29. Do not plot harm against your neighbor who lives trustfully near you. Do not accuse anyone for no reason when they have done you no harm. Right? They haven't done anything to you. Right? So he says, don't harm anyone, especially the one who trusts you, the one, your neighbor, right? The one is God has placed around you in your life. It's very important. You see, to some people in this world, you could blindly trust them and say whatever you want to tell them. The reason why you tell them or you open up to them is that because you know they won't take that vulnerability and harm you back. Right? Let me repeat that. You will only open up to people your secrets and vulnerability if you know that person will not take advantage of that vulnerability and harm you back. Right? That is what not doing harm. Everyone around us should feel the same way about us if you really want to love. Right? That's the first step. That's nursery. So if ever anybody thinks about us that, well, I better not tell this to this brother because he might pass it on to someone else, or he might turn this vulnerability and poke that and prick and show me. And if they think like that, then it's not that you're not in that nursery love yet. Okay, so think about it. Anything, other things that could harm others is jealousy, envy, selfishness, right? If if presented in a situation, if you are selfish, okay, you might think like, for example, this we may not be experiencing it here, but in India, if you go in a crowded bus or a train, okay, everybody rush to go and get that seat, right? Go get that seat. What is it? It is utter selfishness. You're basically taking up someone, if you can stand. If you can't stand, fine. But if you can stand, but still we want to take that position first, that is harming others by looking after your own self. Eh? There are a lot of areas like that where we could be selfish, right? Self um, satisfying things we do for ourselves that could harm or that could take up someone else's chance. Okay? So that is harming others actually. Okay? We might think, especially in business, that happens everywhere, isn't it? So they hyperinflate the price. It's a very common practice, not knowing. So let's say a product is worth £10 and they hyperinflate to £15 and sell. What are you doing? You're basically robbing that £15 someone else and harming them that way. Okay, there are a lot of things that happens in this world that harms others. Or jealousy. Okay, so if you go to Genesis 37, okay, this is Joseph's brothers. You know how Joseph and his brothers, his relationships were. Okay, so Joseph talks about a dream to his dad, and the brothers know his dad loves Joseph. So what's happening here? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept his matters in mind. So you know what happened because of that jealousy? What followed was they were willing to kill him. You see, the murder is the last step. We may not do it, but if you track back that murder, right, that it will end up in jealousy. So maybe today's law doesn't allow us to murder, or today's CCTV and monitoring systems prevents us from murdering, but it can't prevent us from having jealous in our heart, right? There's no CCTV that could penetrate that deep, but that's where everything is coming from. Okay, so jealousy is a way, is a form of harming someone else. Okay? So that could be us. Are we jealous about our brothers and sisters, or someone around us and our neighbor doing well in their lives? If someone whom we know does well in financially, how does our heart feel? Are we happy about it, or do we resent it? Do we do we have a little, do we keep a little distance from them, right? Do we feel a bit jealousy about it? These are the things that we need to reflect. If my own brother, or if my own sister, or my someone whom I know very close, they were exactly like me, and all of a sudden they had something good in their lives, how do we feel about it? Do we feel happy about it, indifferent about it, or sad about it? If we don't feel happy about it, the truth of the fact of the matter is we are jealous about it. If we don't rejoice that someone we know has done well in their life, that shows that we have jealousy in our heart. That could harm them. right? That could harm them, right? So the first step of love is to look at things like this and see if we're really harming someone else, or do we really love people. If you go to 1 Samuel 17, right, here's a classic example. 28, 17, 28. When Eliab, David's older brother, heard him speaking with men, right, David speaking with men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness?" See how demeaning it is to say, "Oh, you're a shepherd, you should be there. I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle." How can how is this? How can this even be said from? How can a human being talk like that? Leave alone the brother. That comes from jealousy because you've been anointed above all these brothers. A younger guy, good for nothing, shepherd, weak fella, been anointed and been lifted up. So much of hatred and if there is a chance, they would have also killed David, like Joseph's brother tried to kill Joseph. Obviously, it won't happen because it's God's will. These David and Joseph needs to come up in life. But what I'm saying is, look at say this is what happens if we don't have love in our heart. We become jealous, right? Our siblings, if they get better, we get jealous. Someone in our church, a brother or sister, you know, I don't know, worships well or sings well or preaches well or better things in life. These are the things, right? So three emotions could come. One, you could be very joyful, or you'll be very happy that God is lifting this person up, right? Or they've done well in their life. Or you could be indifferent about it, or you could be sad about it. Think about it, right? There is nothing, no one else can diagnose this unless we decide to reflect on our own thing. How do I know? I've very much been there. I was there. I was either indifferent or I was sad about things. Asking questions like why God decided to lift that person, not me. Why was they given so much when I am the one who's hardworking? Things like that, right? So much jealousy and envy in our hearts needs to go. Needs to go. That is actually a reception or a nursery type of love. This is I'm talking. Yeah, that's what Bible talks about. If we even haven't mastered that, even if we haven't graduated here, there is no way that we will love our neighbors. It's not possible. Okay. So think about it. What emotions get evoked when somebody is better, does better? Do you get angry, irritation, jealous, right? Gossiping. If someone tells us something, trusting that we won't say anything to anybody, and we pass it on to someone else, that is not love. That is not love. That's gossip. That is, if you have to be really careful with these things, right? So love, you're damaging their reputation, you're damaging their standing. Okay. That this is going back to what I said earlier. If somebody can't open up things with you, thinking, trusting you, that you will not take advantage, you will not pass it on to others, you will keep it to yourself, right? Do you have that kind of reputation? Do you have that kind of bearing about you? Do people have confidence in you that they can open up anything with you and they're confident that it won't go out and you won't harm them by doing so? If that's not the case, please go back and ask God to give you that grace to it is so tempting to pass it on to others. It's so tempting to pass it on to show off that you know a lot about the other people, or It could do a lot of damage to the people's reputation, people's life. It can bring down a lot of things. That is not love. That is not love. Ask yourself that question: do we harm others by knowingly, unknowingly, right? Do we make, is anyone hurt because of what we have said? If anyone have been uh, sad or been damaged, the reputation damaged because of what we have done, that is not love. Make sure need to ask God, Lord, give me that grace that none of my action, what I say, should ever hurt anyone else. Remember what the brother was speaking last week about Cain and Abel, right? Cain, Abel's, all God did was he accepted Abel's offering. Cain couldn't take it, right? He's like, why is that God being partial? I don't know what he thought about it. Why is he? There are reasons why God did that for you. Maybe, there are children here. If your parent may do something for other siblings, maybe there is a valid reason for it. But if you have that jealousy in your heart, your crooked mind will start thinking your parents are partial. That's exactly what I think Cain must have thought. All right, why is God partial to Abel? And Bible says, God wasn't partial. He accepted Abel's heart. Therefore, he accepted Abel's offering. Okay? And if Cain's heart changed, looked at Abel and said, oh, Abel's heart was good, therefore God took Abel's offering, therefore my heart should change. And if he had changed that heart and offered it, God would have taken Cain's offering as well. Yeah? So instead, he chose to harm his brother. Instead, he chose to be jealous of her. Remember, again, jealousy goes down to murdering his brother, exactly like Joseph's pattern. Okay, jealousy, anger, irritation, right? Gossiping. These will damage others big time. We may not murder, we may not steal, right? We may not go down into prostitution or routes like that. But how about heart-related harming others, right? Emotionally damaging people. Make sure we don't do that. Right? Where in your workplace, in your team meetings, make sure nobody gets damaged emotionally because of what you say. Very important. So that's the first or nursery step. If God reminds you of certain things, if God reminds you of, like, you may, is there anyone who is not able to speak to you tonight? Is there anyone in this world, right, feels a bit distant from you because they don't feel that it is safe to speak to you, right? Or is it not, maybe they are reluctant to speak to you because they think you might damage their reputation, or you might gossip about it. Think about it. If that is the case, ask God to change you, and say, Lord, make me a person that anybody on this world could safely come and speak to me and think that I will only mean good to them. All right? The advice you give, okay, if somebody comes and confides something for an advice, the advice that comes out of your heart should only prosper them and not harm them. You should not, even they have done harm to you. That's not how we should repay. So whatever we say or think about it, it should only bless others. It should not harm. That's the first step. Don't harm anyone. Okay, so let me read that. Romans 13, 8 to 10, before we look at the next step. Let no debt remain outstanding except continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others have fulfilled the law. The commandments, okay, Romans 13, 9. The commandments: you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other commands there may be, all summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. One nail that's hanging on it. Two nails. So first one is love your God. Second is love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of it. Remember, the love does not harm others. First, start at your home. Make sure you don't harm, you know, your wife, your husband, your children, your parents, and then you go on to think for other brothers, sisters, your workplace neighbor, the school neighbors. Think about all the neighbors you have, but start at home first. Okay, whatever you do should not harm your partner, your children, your parents, right? Whatever you think should not harm. Okay, whatever you think for your partner, for your children, for your parents, should not be to harm them, but to bless them. Okay, and they should be able to openly speak to you, and you should be able to openly speak to them. Very important, right? Never once you should think, if I open up this vulnerability to my husband or wife, they might take advantage of me. Never. Should never happen. If it happens, if you even think like that, there's no love in that relationship. Okay, you should be able to openly say anything you want in that loving relationship, and then once that's achieved, try and expand it to other areas as well. So that is one thing. Secondly, so now we are moving on to primary school. Okay, so if you graduated there, the nursery is past, you're going to the next one. Let's go to Proverbs 3. (27 to 28). So the first one, not to do harm, and the second stage is to do good, actively do good. All right, 27. Proverbs 3:27. Do not withhold good from those whom it is due, when it is in your power to act. Right? When you can do good, when you have the opportunity to do good, right? Do good. That's very important. All right. Do not say to your neighbor, come back tomorrow and give it to you, when you already have it with you. So if we have the ability to help someone, okay, if you have the time to help someone, if you have the money to help someone, if you have the knowledge to help someone, if you have the intelligence to help someone, if you have connections or network to help others, if you have the ability to help others, don't withhold it from them. Okay, very important. Okay, but if you don't have the knowledge, not a problem. If you don't have the ability, not a problem. If you don't have a time, not a problem. If you don't have the money, that's not a problem. If people either go this way or that way, people, when they don't have something, and they condemn themselves, saying that I couldn't help that, I couldn't help that. But if you don't have that ability to do that, forget it. That's not what you're asked to do. If you have the ability, if you have the knowledge, if you have the money, if you have the time, right, then do it. You have to do it, actively do it. Okay, if you go to 1 Peter, let's go to 1 Peter 4. (7). The end of all things is near. Therefore be alert and of sober mind, so that you may pray. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers multitudes of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have, right, received, to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in various forms. Whatever that is. If you have a preaching ability, serve others. If you have a singing ability, serve others. If you have money, serve others. If you have time, serve others. If you have the knowledge God has given you, serve others. If you have received whatever gift it is, because whatever you have is a gift from God. The health, the wealth, the money, the ability to speak, whatever it is. All right? That is love. He says, so above all, love each other. How do you do it? He says in verse 8, 1 Peter 4 8, he says, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers. How do you do it? And he defines that in the next couple of verses. He says, offer hospitality. All right? Here he's not talking about harming anyone. He's not saying don't harm. He's going the next step and say, well, I know that you're not harming. You guys are past. Now go to the next step. He encourages the people reading this letter. He says, now love now. Love, offer now. Right? Offer hospitality. Go actively pursue looking for areas where there might be a gap that you can help. But if you don't have the ability, if you don't have the time, if you don't have the energy, if you don't have it, don't worry. That's not required of you. God hasn't blessed you with that. God hasn't gifted you with that. That's okay. Don't condemn yourself. I have done that before. I've looked at certain people in ministry or in people like Mother Teresa, or how can they do it? Why I'm not doing it? And people do condemn, don't they? Oh, look at that missionary, look at this missionary. Why are you sitting here doing nothing? Just go there. I don't have that gift. God hasn't gifted me with that. All right. Yeah, somebody who said that? Somebody recently, I've been. Oh yeah, Mary's sister was saying, I've been preaching and I've been sharing gospel, but nobody seems to come to God. Don't worry. I mean, don't condemn yourself, right? Do it, but don't condemn yourself. If God is using us, right? If He's gifted us clearly to serve others, okay, and if we have that opportunity, do it with all your heart. If God has given you the money to help, right? After helping your family, that is, right? Don't help others before you helping your own family. Okay, so first, be a good steward. He uses this wonderful word there. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, a faithful steward, not unfaithful steward, or not like a stupid steward. Steward is managing whatever they have smartly, right? Stewards. So if you're given a family to run that faithfully first. Okay. If you're given children to be raise them first, right? If you're given, God has given you a little ministry to do that first. Worship, whatever gift God has given you, do that faithfully. Don't condemn yourself for things God hasn't gifted you with. Don't condemn yourself if God hasn't, given you money to help others. So whatever is given, and the knowledge, right? Some of us have knowledge of certain things, like some of us have computer knowledge, some of us have medical knowledge, some of us have other knowledges, right? So whatever the knowledge we have, do it, be a useful steward to others. Okay, right? So that's offering. And then if you go to Matthew 7, and how do we do it? And Jesus defines it. Matthew 7. 9. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, you'll give him stone, or if he asks for fish, you'll give him snake? If you then, though you are evil, knows how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do others what you have them do to you. That's a good scale to have in our lives. Okay, this scale, I've been using it for a while now. For this sums up the law of the prophets. What he's saying is, do if you're approaching somebody, all right, and you want, if whatever you want others to, like let's go back to the bus scenario in India. When you go onto a very crowded bus, would you not, if your leg hurts, would you not want others to ask you to take the seat on their behalf, right? You would be you would love if somebody could stand up and give you the seat if your leg hurts. Do it to others. Okay. If same, the um, everything, like, whatever you want others to do it for you, you don't want others to gossip about you, don't do it, right? If you want others to give you quality advice, the best, in the best of their ability, do that for them, right? When your advice also should be like that, without partiality, without vested interest. If you want others to help you without expecting anything from you, you also do things to others not expecting anything from them. Don't only go friendly with people whom you think will help you at some point. So it's a very, very fine line. This, we could get easily deceived with this. We get very close to people only if we know that there is something we can get from them, right? Like, if I do this, they might do to me at some point. That is not love. That is transaction, right? Transactional love. That's not what he's talking about. Do to others what you have them do to you. That's very important, right? So think about this. Put yourself in their shoe and think, all right, would you be, if you don't have money, you want someone to come and give you some money, not expecting you to give them back because you don't have any. So therefore, go look for people. If God is given you money, and if God puts you across or sends someone in your life, especially your relatives, friends who doesn't have money and struggling, try and extend your generosity to them, knowing that they won't give you back. Knowing, not to everybody, because there are people who could take advantage of that, all right? But genuinely needful people, extend that. Okay. Extend that. So do to others what you would have them to do to you. Wonderful, wonderful scale to use. Okay. So second, we are still in primary school. Let's go to First John. This is what Jesus did. This is what Jesus did. 1 John 3:16. 1 John 3:16. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, right? Not expecting anything from us later, right? And we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters, which means, even if it is a bit uncomfortable, right? We need to sacrifice our time sometimes. We may have to sacrifice some money sometimes. We may have to sacrifice some comfort sometimes, right? To help others, to make sure that others' life are a bit more comfortable. That's what he's talking about. Sacrifice is, something uncomfortable for me, but it'll make them a little more comfortable. Okay. But if you find somebody very uncomfortable and very struggling, you kind of compromise some of your sacrifice, some of your comfort, to make their life even better. This is what pushed pretty much all the missionaries, right? All the missionaries, the basic thing is this, right? They have nothing, I have so much. So therefore, they were pushed by this love towards places like India or Bihar or Africa or South America. This is what has pushed them, right? I have a lot, and I have a good news as well. I have something that could help these people come out of darkness and live in joy and happiness. Therefore, they just went, thinking that, why are they going there? Are they going to earn money or reputation? Nothing. They just went. Don't worry about your reputation. Don't worry about name. Don't worry that so and so should tell your name or recognize you. Don't get worried if nobody recognizes you. Nobody tells your name. Don't worry about all these things. Just do that, because that is what love is all about. That is what love is all about. If don't get hurt if somebody doesn't recognize you. You don't have to be, because this is love. If you expect your name to be publicized, if you expect your name to be honored, right? If you expect your name to be printed in certain, I don't know, some leaflet or whatever, that is not love. That is expecting. That's transactional. You give something, you want reputation, your recognition. That's transactional. That's not love. Don't worry about if nobody recognizes you. It's absolutely okay. But the one who sees in secret will reward you. The ones who knows your heart, he will reward you. Okay. Let me read the last one before we go on to the next step. Matthew 25:34. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since creation of the world. For I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, you invited me in. I needed clothes, you clothed me. I was sick, you looked after me. I was in prison, you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry and fed you, and thirsty you and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invited you needing clothes to clothe you? When did we see you sick? King replied, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me. Right? The least, not any brothers and sisters. Without the least won't give you back. The least won't advertised, because they don't have any network to advertise your name. The least will not give you some sort of favor back, because they are the least. Look after them. All right, look after them. If they are already struggling, okay, people are struggling, look after them. If God gives you opportunities like that, make sure that no, just spare a thought. God is basically giving you an opportunity. If someone comes across in your life, right, you don't, even if you're not actively pursuing those, at least if God puts someone across in your life like that, gives you a burden of about certain group of people or certain a relative of yours in your heart, and you think about that person is struggling, really struggling with something, and you have something to offer. It could be advice, it could be money, it could be anything that you could offer. Do it. Do it. Especially if they are least, if they are very powerless, if they are stuck in a corner, right, and they have nothing to offer you. Do it. God says, I'll recognize that. That is love. He says that is what loving the neighbor is all about. So first step is not to harm anyone. If you have graduated there, and in any given church or a fellowship, you will see these nursery students in love, right? Harming people around, being insensitive, don't know what they're talking, that they could hurt others, right? Gently teach them on how to not to do that, right? Secondly, there will be people on the second one to actively pursuing, encourage, learn from them, right? Learn from them, and also you also replicate it so others can look at you and learn what love is, and ask God to give that grace. It's not easy. It's God has to give us this grace to do those things, right? Because our naturally we are so jealous. Naturally, we are born with it. This afternoon I was looking at one of the video things on the telly. A very very small child, a little child, right, probably age of a 1 or 1.5. Okay, the mother picks up a doll and tries to cuddle the doll. This child was so jealous that it goes and pulls the doll and beats the doll because the mother was picking the doll instead of the child. They think it's a competition, it's a jealousy, right? And you'll see that, right? In we all have children. The first child, when the second child comes, the first child is always like wanting the mother's attention, isn't it? So that is within us. That's so much within us. Nobody has to teach us that. It's so inbuilt, that jealousy, that we want the first place, we want the attention, we want the best. That's always in us. So that love should, God's love should break that thing, right? And put others welfare before us. If we have come to that, okay, the third and final is the most difficult one. Let's go to Matthew 5. So now primary to secondary school, mature students, right? Mature in Christ. Okay, let's have a look. You have heard, Matthew 5:43. You have heard that it is said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes sun to rise to the evil and to the good, and sends rain on the righteous and unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Or not even tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. So he's moving towards perfection here, right? The secondary school or mature student, even university graduates, I call it. It's moving from not to harm anyone to actively help someone to love the neighbors, those who hurt you, right? Those who hurt you. So, if somebody hurts us, what we think is the most pious thing to do is to withdraw from them and say, I'll just keep a distance from them. I won't hurt them back, right? But I'll just withdraw a little. We think that's so much of a pious thing to do. We think that's the most mature thing we could do. But it's not that. God is saying it's not pulling away. It is to pray for them. It is to help them. If they get into crisis, to help them, right? But at the same time, you don't just go and get hurt again and again. That's stupidity, right? If somebody is hurting you constantly and you keep on going and getting hurt, that's stupidity. That's not what he's talking about. He's saying someone has hurt you, right? Stay up, wait for an opportunity to see how you can help them. Right? If you are presented with an opportunity to help them, go full on, help them. If you haven't had an opportunity, that's okay, wait. Okay, but if you had an opportunity, go help them. Very important. Okay, so he says, it's been said, love your neighbors, but he says, now I say, love your enemy. Wait for the opportunity. And he talks about this in Luke 10. If you go to Luke 10, and he puts this in a very, very nice parable. Let's Luke 10, 25. On one occasion, the expert of the law, I think this is what we read earlier. I'll read it and then I'll go into the parable and then I'll tell you what it is. So one occasion, the expert of the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? He answered, love your Lord with all your heart. Love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied, do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself and he asked, who is my neighbor? And in reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Let's stop there. So this man is going from Jerusalem to Jericho. You know what it tells you? It tells you, people who go to Jerusalem is mostly to worship. There's no trade. It's not like Tarshish, or it's not a trading port or anything like that. The people who go to Jerusalem read Bible throughout. People who go to Jerusalem usually go to the temple to worship or to sacrifice or do some religious activity. He goes from Jerusalem, so he's probably come from Jericho, all right, and he's returning from Jerusalem to Jericho. Jerusalem is a Jewish town. Jericho is a Jewish town. Okay, they are not it's not in Samaria. It's in Judah, right? It's in Judah, so it's purely Jewish towns. So he's saying one guy, a Jew, right, is going from Jerusalem, probably after worship, going to Jericho. Okay, when he was attacked by robbers, they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. They were not in love, right? They are doing harm here. Okay, so they are not. These guys are not. These robbers are not even in the nursery. Okay, they were below nursery, so they were harming others. So harm. Okay, but a priest happened to be going down same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by. So this guy is in nursery. He's not harming. He's not taking more money from this guy, or he's not taking advantage of the situation or anything like that. But he just passed on the other side. So to a Levite who came and saw him, passed him on the other side. Again, this guy is not harming him. He's not picking up whatever he has or stripping him of clothes or anything like that. So he just goes. Okay, but a Samaritan, this is where the thing changes. You know who Samaritans are? I think most of you know, if not all of you know, right? Who are Samaritans?
The people who are looked down upon.
Looked down upon. That is one thing, but they are looked as enemies. I'll show you. If you go to Luke 9, let's go to Luke 9. Okay, Luke 9, 51. As the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, this is Jesus, Jesus resolutely set out to Jerusalem. So he's going to Jerusalem to be killed. And he sent messengers on ahead who went into Samaritan village to get things ready for him. Okay, along the way, he crosses the Samaria. But people there did not welcome him. Why? Because he is going to Jerusalem to worship Jehovah, right? So they didn't like him, right? They're okay with others, but the Jewish people, they were not okay, and Jewish were not okay with them either. Okay, they are quite like a cat and a dog. Okay, when the disciple, look at this. This is important. 54. When the disciples James and John saw this, they asked, "Lord, do you want us to call fire down and destroy the Samaritans?" Right? So such is the enmity, right? Shall we bring down the fire and kill these guys? Right? Or in today's world, can we get these B-12 bombers and bomb these guys down to raise this? It's happening, isn't it, in today's world? Right? Shall we raise these guys down to earth? Right? Shall we get this little hydrogen? Oh no, nuclear they won't use, but carpet bomb. Let's carpet bomb this place. Something like that. You will only do it to your enemy, isn't it? You will only do it to your worst hated enemy. You won't do it to kind of a little enemy. You don't bring fire down. You probably say, well, can we give them some famine, or starve them for a few days? That's okay. To bring down fire and destroy the entire place, you'll only do it to your arch enemy. Okay, and look around. That's only happening when the enemy is quite bad enemy. That's how they looked at it. But Jesus turned and rebuked them. Then he and said, "You don't understand what spirit of you." I mean, if he was not happy at all with how these disciples approach it, because he's coming with a different angle here. He's saying you need to love your enemies, and they heard him speak like that. Yet they wanted to raise it. So this is how the Samaritans were. So Jesus picks this. Let's go back to Luke 10:33.